Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third session of the Making Next series. Today, we're going to talk about products and services. And in previous sessions, we have been discussing about sustainable products and the impact that these have on society. But sometimes the impact of a single product is not enough to really influence the end-to-end reduction of emissions or other parameters. And what we're seeing is companies are really looking for end-to-end solutions that combine product and services into an end-to-end value chain and with circular models that really drive efficiency and reduce sustainability. And one of the big things we're seeing is exactly this, that for the last few years, a lot of people have been talking about the challenge between sustainability or efficiency. And now we're seeing that a lot of companies are starting to be able to drive competitive advantage by enabling it through sustainability, and therefore they're driving margin and sustainability. As our first speaker today, we have Robert Metzke, who's the head of sustainability in Philips. Philips is an organization that is one of the leaders in this space and has more than 8,000 people in the sustainability team, and that already 10 years ago started innovating in some of these end-to-end solutions of products and services that did a step change in both the company performance, but as well in the parameters to improve our planet. Robert also has a background in consulting, and he's a father of 3 living in the Netherlands. So with this, I will let the space for Robert to share with us some of the things that they're doing.
Thanks very much, Ignacio, and thanks everybody for having me. It's a great pleasure being with you. Yeah, let me share some slides as backdrop for the discussion that we are having. And as Ignacio said in the introduction, sustainability is really part of what we do. So I wanted to share with you a little bit of the backdrop, and I don't need to go into a lot of the details here because obviously the context of the discussion is sustainable business. So I just wanted to point out some delicate details here. For instance, Philips is a global health technology company with 80,000 people and about 30 billion of revenues. Now we are in an industry that is, while at one hand trying to help cure patients and improve people's lives, also extremely polluting. The healthcare industry in itself is emitting more CO2 than shipping or airlines together. While at the same time also really suffering from the climate change. The WHO, the World Health Organization, has said that the Paris Climate Treaty may have been the most important healthcare treaty of the 21st century. So the topic is dear and close to our heart. And of course, the topics that are shown here are closely interrelated. So if we think about that the footprint per medical treatment is crazily high, then you can imagine if you want to expand healthcare to all of mankind, with 3.5 billion people not having access to care as we speak, we really need to do something drastically to reduce emissions and decarbonize healthcare, move to circular models, and that has all the implications that Ignacio mentioned in the introduction. Now, if you take a step back, then this picture, I think, shows a little bit the challenge. What you see on the slide, the bubbles are the countries. On the x-axis, you see the standard of living in the countries. And on the y-axis, you see the environmental footprint. And all the countries that are on the right-hand side here with a high human development index use multiples of the one planet that we actually have, right? So we really need desperately innovation to improve the standard of living while at the same time reducing the environmental footprint. And it is clear that I'm not only talking about technological innovation, but it's really also about innovation across the entire chain, for instance, in healthcare on changing elements of the healthcare system, improving the efficiency, reducing readmissions, and also business model innovation, of course. Now, as Philips, we have said we really want to improve the lives of 2.5 billion people by 2030. That is the purpose of the company. So it's not a financial goal that we have at the highest level of the company. It's an impact goal. Actually, we said already we want to improve people's lives when Philips was founded 130 years ago. But what has changed over the last 10 years or so is that we really put numbers and metrics behind it and really cascade it and to drive innovation and also the innovation and strategy agenda of the company. If you make it more tangible, then of course you need short-term targets, so to say, short-term meaning 5 years here, which lead to the 2030 agenda also. The material impact topics for Philips are around health and well-being for all, and around the sustainable use of materials and the sustainable use of energy. So we have linked that to 3 of the Sustainable Development Goals: SDG 3, health and well-being for all, circular economy, and climate action. I will only speak really about circular economy here today, but rest assured, when you talk about business model innovation, health and well-being for all is a fascinating field that can only be addressed by really collaborating across many different players. Digitalization of healthcare is a huge part, and we really want to bring healthcare to at least 300 million people in underserved communities. Think about Indonesia, India, Africa, which requires really fundamental transformations and a lot of technology innovation and business model innovation. One of the big enablers to address circular economy and also climate action really is eco-design. So we are committed to science-based targets, 1.5 degrees, end-to-end, meaning we are teaming up with our suppliers to reduce the emissions from our supply chain. But the biggest impact really, both in circular economy and in climate action, really is in the use phase of our products. And that's why eco-designing our products and solutions and moving to these circular models is so important. If you look, for instance, at this slide, then you see the environmental profit and loss statement of Philips. So we try to put a number on the environmental impact that our products are having, not just in the sourcing phase, but also in the production phase, the logistics, and in the use phase. And then you really see that more than 80% of the total impact that Philips has is in the use phase of the customers. And again, that's the point why any company that really wants to do something about it needs to also make sustainability part of the strategy and their innovation roadmaps. Now, one of the tools that we have developed at the end of, I think the 1990s even as concept studies was eco-design, which really tries to improve packaging, energy efficiency, phasing out hazardous substances, improve repairability. Now, today we would call it also design for circular readiness. We are today at above 70% of our products being eco-designed, and towards 2025 that will be 100%. As I said, a couple of focal areas that we are really concentrating on is energy, sustainable packaging, phasing out of hazardous substances, and designing for circularity. Circularity is not a product property, as you can imagine. It is really an end-to-end property that needs to take into account the entire system, including the business models, how return flows are organized, what type of recycling technologies are there, refurbishment technologies, and so forth. But at least you can design with circularity in mind, and that's what we mean with designing for circularity. To just give you, I'm going too fast. To just give you one example of a little bit of a bigger machine here, you see an MR scanner, a magnetic resonance scanner, which weighs many, many tons. These machines are typically operated with thousands of liters of helium. Helium in itself being a scarce resource. We have managed through this eco-design program to develop a technology which allows us to operate such a machine completely helium-free. So you fill it once with 7 liters of helium, then it gets sealed, and then you can run it for the technical lifetime without using further helium, which has many advantages, including where you can put it in a hospital, but also it really saves resources. It is more energy efficient, despite having added new functions. It is less weighty also than the predecessors. So there's a lot of really cool features and insights that come from looking through a sustainability lens and improving products. I already mentioned circularity. Now, circularity, of course, is much broader in the circular economy than different technical specs or just energy efficiency. And there are a couple of big buckets that we really push to advance on circularity. The first one, of course, is making better material choices. So using recycled materials, using recyclable materials, but that's really at the chemical level, so to say. For instance, which plastics or which metals to choose, and also how to join them. Now, the next level is the systems architecture. Many of you, maybe from the software side, know that you think about systems architecture, platforms, and so forth. You can do the same, of course, for hardware. So thinking about hardware platforms, thinking about modular design so that you can actually reassemble machines, that you can reconfigure them, that you can exchange components, right? It sounds kind of stupid, but many of us have been thinking about buying a new telephone because the camera has improved after 2 years. Now, that is not only very unsustainable, it's also extremely costly. And in a hospital, that really causes a lot of downtime if you have to break open the operating theater to getting out these big machines. If you design them in a modular way, you can slide in a new camera, so to say. Or you can even do upgrades over the air and really help many more patients while keeping the main machine and the big magnets, for instance, in place. The third one related to that is the business model. So moving from transactional business models to service models. I'll come to that in a second. And the last one, maybe the first one, is really about digitalization. So everything that you can do to dematerialize and provide functions with software rather than hardware, of course, reduces the environmental footprint and extends the lifespan of a product. Now, giving you one example of that, for instance, we have started to offer patient monitoring as a service, and it has quite significant implications also from a business model perspective, right? So it means to move for a hospital, for instance, to move from CapEx to OpEx, from capital expenditure. So you can start to partner really on outcomes. It has implications for the product design. You do not design really for standalone kits with break-fix services attached, but you really think about modular platforms with lifetime extending circuits services. It means also different ways of billing and reimbursing, going from single transaction to multiple recurring revenues. And it means also you have implications for reverse logistics, for your field engineers. So lots of changes on our side, but also on the customer side, but very interesting because you are much more aligned on the outcomes. Having said that, it's obvious that all these changes cannot happen with a couple of experts tinkering away in the backyard or in a garage, right? You really need to do this together with the customers, with your suppliers in the field. So lots of pilots and commercial proof runs going on in hospitals with leading care providers around the world as we speak, Europe, Asia, America. We have organized a couple of really interesting and insightful co-creation sessions. For instance, at the CleanMed in Europe, it's the biggest healthcare fair and on sustainability. And of course, we are really involved in platforms. For instance, PACE, the platform to accelerate circular economy, where we team up with governments, the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, Japan, many NGOs, Ellen MacArthur Foundation being one of them, the World Economic Forum, to really bring experts together and exchange best practices and also solve some of the difficulties that we see with existing regulations, for instance. Now, this also has a profound impact on the company and transforming our company. We have, I think, a relatively thorough transformation framework put in place, because it's not just about a nice story. It's about co-developing that story together with our 80,000 employees. It's engaging with the leaders throughout the company. And then I'm not just talking about formal leaders, but also informal leaders, people that are opinion leaders in your organization, people that have a lot of clout, take people with them, can be leading engineers or can be interns even, right? People with a voice. It's about empowering them and helping them to get the training, the factual knowledge that you need to, for instance, design for circularity, to deliver these new business models. And it's really about embedding in the system. So if people are all fired up and do 12 months in a row the best that they can do to reduce the environmental footprint, and that could get punished at the end of the year because the financial incentives are not in line, that would be really foolish. So we have embedded the sustainability targets also in the reimbursement scheme of Philips, for instance, tied to short-term and long-term incentives, but it's also really embedding them in the key processes of the company, product development, launch, and maintenance, for instance, and many others. Now it's creating quite a buzz, and it's very exciting. So we have, next to the sustainability function, a quite large community of practice of more than 8,000 people now in Philips that is organized in local cells and with global and regional check-ins, training programs, and so forth. And yeah, fantastic to see the energy that this unleashes and the momentum that we are seeing in the organization. So maybe in summary, by 2025, 100% of our products will be eco-designed. On top of that, we have defined a new category of eco-heroes that will go towards 25% of total revenues that really push the boundaries of what's technically feasible. And otherwise, we continue to improve, of course, the energy efficiency, phasing out hazardous substances, and really embed circular thinking across the entire value chain in the design of our processes. That's where I wanted to leave it for now as an introduction. Thanks so much. Back to Ignacio.
Thank you so much, Robert, for your wonderful presentation. I think it was extremely interesting what you were saying about how innovation with purpose is transforming your organization and how that has to be across all the chain, right? In relation to that, last week we talked about sustainable products as a first step towards sustainable development. But the environmental benefits, as you were mentioning, Robert, of sustainable products can be easily counteracted by an increase in consumption. Therefore, the transition towards increased sustainability must include not only the behavior of producers, but also the behavior of consumers. And we have with us two very exciting examples of how product service businesses can change consumer behavior. Too Good To Go, which is a redistribution company that connects customers to restaurants and stores that have unsold surplus food, and Alvéole, an urban beekeeping company that rents out hives to customers. So we will start first with Too Good To Go. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Marylin Bisso. She's VP Operations Regional General Manager at Too Good To Go. Marylin has a background in business administration and experience in digital marketplace, scale-ups, startups, innovation, digital strategy, and fast-moving consumer goods. Marylin, thank you so much for being here with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pilar, for the introduction. And good evening, good night to everybody. I'm going to share some slides that I prepared. Give me a second. So let's see. Okay, so hopefully you are seeing my screen. Yes. Okay, perfect. So Too Good To Go. Too Good To Go is a for-profit company, but everything we do is about sustainability. So it's a different example in this case, because this company was born with the whole purpose of doing something about sustainability. And the mission of the company is to inspire and empower everyone to fight food waste together. And why did we choose actually to fight food waste together? Because we discovered at some point that 40% of food is wasted across the whole food chain production. And this is accountable for almost 10% of all greenhouse gas emissions. So climate change experts actually say that reducing food waste is one of the most important things that we can do to reverse global warming. So we decided at some point in the company to do something about this. And this idea was born because of this. And the whole company is working towards this mission. So some important facts is that this whole waste happens along the whole production, or the whole chain. So a third of it happens during the production, but there's 23% of it happens during the handling and the storage of the food, 10% of it during the packaging, only 13% of it during the distribution and retail, meaning by supermarkets, by stores, and the remaining, which is 22%, at the consumption point, which is households and restaurants, or what we call food services. So the thing is that Too Good To Go right now, with the capabilities that we have built, we're just focusing on the part of the distribution and retail. So actually the mission that we have, we're still far away from achieve it, because we are just focusing right now on the distribution and retail. We do other stuff to try to address the opportunity during the packaging and at consumption point, but that is something that we need to keep developing. So what are the pillars that we have created? in order to tackle this opportunity. We have two types of impact, what we call is the indirect impact and the direct impact. The indirect impact is about working with through public affairs, with businesses, full education, with households, with the schools. But the direct impact actually is the one that most people know. That's the reason why people know us, which is the marketplace, because we realized that we needed technology and obviously design to reach out the users and engage them in to do something about sustainability. So we are a company that we use technology and product and design in order to do this. And we do it through our app. So just let me guide you a little bit on in what part of the whole cycle we work. So we are not working right now about preventing surplus. We work on the part of upcycle the surplus. So Too Good To Go is a marketplace where we sell unsold food in a more flexible way before it is expired. So it's still food that is very good to be consumed, and after the best before date. So this is a point where we are focusing right now in order to fight food waste. So some facts about Too Good To Go. So right now, Too Good To Go is a company that is operating in 17 countries, most of the European countries, plus Canada and the United States. We have reached 45 million users at this point. We have 86,000 active stores. This could be restaurants, it could be canteens or supermarket stores. So these stores are active. So every month, at least 86,000 are supplying some product in the app. We have reached the number of 95 million meals saved. I will explain a little bit more why do we count this in meals and not revenue. We have inspired or touched more than 147 million people at this point through all our channels. And we have an organization of 1,250 employees. So with this organization that seems to be small, we have been able to onboard massive accounts of partners, like Starbucks, 7-Eleven, Carrefour, and many others. So that gives us a message and a good signal that these companies are interested in doing something about this topic. We can say with a lot of pride that we are a certified B Corporation. So that means that the company meets the highest standards of social and environmental impact. So as I was mentioning, people ask because our marketplace, but we do all this other stuff about public affairs and education. We work with the schools, but the reality is that the action happens in the marketplace, in the app, because that's the place where everybody meets to actually save the meals. So let me explain you a little bit the concept of this and how it was designed based on the restrictions of the model, but also on the surprise element that we wanted to create with the users. So the thing about surplus food is that it is not planned. That's why it's surplus. Obviously, the companies, they don't want to waste money. They don't want to lose money. And this happens because a problem in the planning. So it is impossible to plan. Because it is impossible to plan, it is very difficult to tell the user what they're going to receive. Because this is the companies or the stores, they put this available food basically at the end of the day or at the end of the cycle. That could be even in the morning, but they don't know what they're going to be able to put in the app. So we created this concept of the magic bag. So we used a restriction in the model actually to create something fun out of it. So this is a magic bag. There's going to be product there. We tell the user that there's going to be very good value because the price that we sell this product is actually 1/3 of the normal retail price of this product. So we use this concept of magic bags to take the best of the restriction of the model and to transform it into something fun that we can communicate to the users. So basically what you do is you go into this app, you find a meal or you find a store that you know or that you don't know as a user. You pick up a bag, or you can purchase or reserve 1, 2, 3 bags. And then you get the code, you go with your cell phone to the store, you show this code, you pick up the bag, and that's it. So it's very simple. And the users are very used to this kind of dynamics because of the penetration of in the recent years in food delivery apps or marketplaces. So you go to a digital marketplace, you pick up something, you pay for it, and then you're ready to go. So the real impact behind this is obviously the environmental impact. There is an important value proposition for the stores because there's a recovery in terms of financial value. The stores are able to recover 1/3 of the product that they were absolutely ready to waste. So that is our main value proposition for the stores or the businesses. And obviously they can use this to improve the brand in terms of social impact. So the reason why these stores, big accounts joined us, basically is these 3, but there are challenges behind this, and I will explain a little bit about it. So what are our current challenges? I really wanted to tell you that not everything is as simple as it looks. You know, there's a lot of beauty in the way that the brand is positioned and is designed, but there are many challenges that we are facing right now. So the first one is that consumers have changed in this era post-COVID. In the past, I'm talking 1 year ago, 2 years ago, the habit of sustainability was increasing. Something has happened in the mind of the consumers, and we need to refresh this new idea. Obviously, they have this new energy about going out and interacting with people and friends, and going back to the lives that you used to have. And some of these habits that they had created in the past have been forgotten. So now we need to get them back. So there is a whole effort that we're making as a company to match better the supply and the demand. And this is going to rely heavily on tech, because we do have a supply, we do have a demand from the users, but we need to connect them both. So in the past, we were not using tech as much as now. We really are using data a lot more. We're improving our features to create a better product fit with these users and remind them that we are here and it's easy to use, and there will be doing something for sustainability. Our third challenge is to scale faster, because all these marketplaces, I mean, this is a company that is for profit, but sustainability is at the center. But again, it's for profit. So we need to learn to scale faster, meaning we need to grow our top line, our revenue faster than our cost. When you see this, you can imagine that the main costs are behind acquiring the stores, inviting the stores to join, and then keeping the relationship ongoing. So there is a cost that is very much into human resources, but we need to be able to use tech and CRM and automation and all these things that we know that work in order to scale faster. Another challenge is to get these big partners on board. So as I mentioned, we do have a few of the big ones, but you have to understand that these super key accounts, as we call them, they have legal challenges that they need to address, operational challenges, they need to change their system, they need to integrate them with us. They do face challenges before taking the decision of being part of this. They do love the concept and the idea of stop wasting money, of course, but they need to overcome some challenges internally. And that's the part that makes us a little bit slow. So I'll be happy to answer questions now or later, but thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marylin. It was very interesting learning that waste happens all across the chain, and especially that 22% of the waste comes from us consumers. So there's a lot of work to do in relation to increasing awareness now of consumers. There are some questions in the question and answer that are specifically for either you, Robert, or you, Marylin. If you can answer them there, that would be wonderful. Thank you. And now we're moving to Declan. Declan Rankin Jardin is co-founder of Alvéole, a company that also raises the awareness of consumers. After spending a summer at a bee farm, Declan and his two bandmates decided to set up their own urban beehives. And then seeing the potential to educate people about beekeeping in the city, they founded Alvéole in 2013. The team started bringing bees on businesses' rooftops and collecting their surplus honey and giving it back to the company to enjoy. And since then, they have expanded to 21 major cities in Canada, the United States, and France. So thank you very much, Declan, for being here with us, and the floor is yours.
Amazing. Thanks for having me. Pleasure's all mine. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and then we can begin. So today, yes, I only have 10 minutes. I'm going to tell you a story. This is how I've structured my little presentation. So yes, we're an urban beekeeping company. That may seem more and more normal, but looking back on our history, when we first started out, the idea of putting bees in cities was probably very strange. And it's something that we're really happy that it's become a little more normalized. And so, there we go. This is basically the core of our mission. It's a clean sentence that really encapsulates what we're trying to do in cities. It definitely wasn't as clear when we first started out. And I hope to be able to show you that throughout the course of this little presentation. But what we're really trying to do is connect people to nature, and we're choosing cities as our place. You know, those 17 sustainable goals were probably most focused on that, the city one, number 11, with obviously other ones that we kind of touch upon. We are 1% for the planet, super proud of that. Basically means you take 1% of your profits and work with other kind of non-for-profit companies, and it's really been a cool way for us. We distribute the money into every single city that we have, and we try to encourage mostly urban greening projects. And as well, just like Too Good To Go, we're a certified B Corp. We certified with the minimum amount of points because it's just a very long process. So, but we're recertifying this year, so we hope to get up in terms of points. I really love B Corp. I think it's an interesting way of not only helping you structure a business as you grow, but understanding what things you want to pick and choose. And it's a very positive way of looking at businesses. So this is basically, you know, if you bring it down to what we're doing right now, you know, the goal is to create awareness. And we have most of our clients that are on, that are commercial. We have two different types of clients. We have commercial clients, and then we have schools. And the schools, I'd say, are like 10% of our business. Most of our clients are commercial real estate and bigger businesses. And the goal is really to engage, whether it's tenants or, you know, whether it's employees. We're trying to really be radical in setting up a beehive, whether it's on the roof or on the ground, and getting people to interact with bees, which sounds dangerous maybe for some, but we make it really fun. And our bees are very docile, and hopefully some of the photos will show you that. But let's do a little trip down memory lane. As Pilar said, we started this probably 8 or 9 years ago, and it was really on a commercial operation. So typically, if you're a beekeeper, you're either making your money by selling honey, or you're making it by doing pollination contracts, you know, getting farmers to pay you to put your bees in an apple orchard, or you know, almond pollination is huge in California. We were working with a honey producer. So the more honey you can make, the more you could push your bees to really produce. That was the goal. And then what we did, since we were city kids, is we wanted to bring bees into our city and really grow something with that, but without the whole honey as a goal. Really just having bees thrive. That was the goal. And so, you know, on a commercial operation, you're working hard, you're crazy long hours, you're getting stung all the time. And the comparison is crazy. You go from all these thousands of bees, and then we're setting up beehives one at a time in the city. And it was just a really fun transition. This is kind of a quick little summary of our story. I mean, what's interesting is from the get-go, we actually hired a developer, and a lot of the things we do are based on tech. So we've had developers on staff since the beginning. They've helped us with our tools, scheduling, our website, a few other things that I'll be able to show you. When we first started, we had a bunch of people in their backyard that wanted to learn how to beekeep. And unfortunately, we had to get rid of them in the model that we were growing. It was a lot of working on Saturday, Sundays. Our beekeepers, you know, would constantly get calls from people. So we had to say goodbye to that service, even though it was near and dear to our heart. And we really started in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and then grew into more and more cities. And the first ones were big jumps for us, but it was really fun to experience a different city, hire more people. And the focus has always been for us is making the beekeeping job more sustainable. Because if you're a beekeeper, it's seasonal work. You usually get hired in April, you get fired in October, and then, you know, brought back in the next year. What we've done over the last, I guess, 5 years is really try to turn this job into a full-time position. So it meant having more client interactions, negotiating the schedules, getting people to have longer vacations, but really keeping people full-time. You don't count your hours, you're a salaried employee. And that's been kind of a lot of the focus over the last few years. And then, you know, of course, moving into new cities as we grow. This is kind of like the highlight of our service. This really summarizes what we do. We call it the frame moment. And it's really when you have 2,000 bees on a piece of wood and you show it to people. So this is like the culmination of our service. When we sell a beehive, we don't actually sell it, we're renting it. And, you know, there's honey included, there's, you know, different products included, but the main thing is we try to push workshops. So we're not just setting up a beehive for it to exist with no interaction. We're trying to bring people, show people what they are, get them fascinated, ask questions, show up to workshops, you know, just get a whole buzz going. And so the frame moment for us is really how we calculate engagement with our clients. You know, a client that puts a beehive up and then, you know, sends us a bill every year is not really a client we want to keep. And usually we don't keep them. Our best clients are the ones that you know, ask for more workshops. They're super engaged, and that's really part of the mission that we've kept is you know, sharing our passion, education, because honeybees inspire people. You know, there's all these comparisons you can make between a beehive and a city, and we try to push those to the maximum and really get people thinking about it and you know, asking questions. So we have an environmental impact. You know, a beehive, typically 50,000 bees in a beehive, 20% of them will be flying at around like 3 to 5 kilometers around the hive. So bees can actually bring back basically a very good sample of what's around the hive. Certain companies use beehives as a bioindicator. We're starting to get into that, but really our main drive is just to start that awareness talk. So to have a beehive, you're, you know, contributing to the environment around you. And then what's interesting is the honey ends up being different year to year, depending on what blooms, what people are planting. And in a way, the beehive is just a way for people to connect and then realize that they can actually have an impact in their city, you know, depending on what they let grow, what they plant. So that's really, we're trying to be a catalyst. So of course, the raw honey, delicious. We give, it's 100 jars per client. And so what's kind of crazy, and people don't always believe us, but we actually do extract the honey from the beehive on the roof separately in each batch. So it's a lot of tracking the boxes, making sure they get to the right you know, facility labeled and all that. It goes by, you know, 5 people's hands before it's actually in a jar returned to the client. But it's one of the things that we love to do, and so we're sticklers about that. Then there's of course a bunch of different kind of wax products that we do, so soaps, lip balms, candles. For the most part, they're made with wax from the hives that we have, but beeswax is just really hard to produce in mass quantities, so we end up buying it from kind of local suppliers that we trust. And you know, the soaps, we are not good at making soap, so we outsource them, but you know, we're creating these firm relationships with our suppliers. And this is where the tech comes in. So we have a whole scheduling app. I guess typical beekeepers, you know, they'll just have a pen and paper and kind of take notes on how their hives are doing or where they are. We have everything like in the cloud. So all of our hives are geolocated. They have a page where the client can go in, learn about, you know, the different things going on in their hive. After every visit, we're uploading photos. You know, it's almost like a Facebook for the beehive. And that's how we're trying to drive engagement. And we're just scratching at the surface here. There's like all kinds of things we can do where potentially, you know, there'd be buttons for you to buy more honey, or I don't know, we'll see how we want to marketize it. But for the moment, it's just really a platform that also allows our beekeepers to work. They have a schedule of what they have to do during the day. It's very transparent with the client. So I'm super excited about this. It's been a part of our company from the get-go. So now I'm going to go over a few of the other kind of weird things that we do. Some are bigger successes than other, but I thought since we're talking innovation, we're talking, why not share some of the things that we do? So since the beginning, we've done a nude calendar, which is a little out there, and you're probably asking why the heck are they doing that? The goal was to show, and this is like our main problem, is people are terribly afraid of bees. And so we kind of pushed it to the extreme, like, okay, let's get naked with bees to show people that, you know, they're docile. And so it started with that, and it's just been kind of a yearly tradition. And we initially were trying to sell it, but now it's more of a gift that we give to clients and make them chuckle, and it's pretty fun. We had when we first started, we had a whole side of our business that was selling beekeeping equipment to, you know, starting beekeepers, selling it to, you know, maybe bigger beekeepers. You know, you buy all this woodenware and then you make a margin, and you know, you try and live that way. We realized that it was just not at all the type of work that inspired us. And, you know, it's best for someone else that wants to do these kind of things. You need relationships. You need to basically be a logistics company, and you have to work on Saturday, Sunday too, which is not always the best. So we've scrapped that part of our business as well. We have initially done like collaborations in different countries where the goal was to share knowledge and try to help beekeepers get off the ground, which we didn't have very much success with at all, partially because the climate is so different depending on where you go. Supply chain is an issue too. I think it was fun for us to be able to travel and meet other beekeepers, but we thought it was going to be a bigger part of our business. It has now kind of gone, we're expanding, but in a different way, which I'll get to. We also have been, you know, obviously going on rooftops. Rooftops are these, it's just vacant space where if you're putting a beehive, why not put other things? So we've been always ruminating about how we could potentially do more on rooftops. We just haven't really got there yet. But the idea is within a rooftop, how can you turn that into just like a lab, you know, where you have all these things growing, you're testing things out. So also maybe not perfect, but this one's actually a monumental failure. We started a chicken coop service. So kind of in the same way where we're renting out beehives. The idea was there'd be a chicken coop and you would be able to have chickens and get your daily eggs and, you know, make whatever you'd like with the eggs. Unfortunately, we didn't design it as a SaaS business. It actually was to make it work, we had to sell the coops. And in the end, there just wasn't enough of a market. Our coops are too expensive. So that as well has been on the back burner. It might come back. I hope it comes back. We just need to find more time for it. But it really is fun to say too. So yeah, this is kind of our I think one of the major things that keeps our business sustainable is that we keep 95% of our clients. And actually, usually it's more, but during COVID, we managed to keep just over 95% of our clients. And of course, we're growing too, but the recurrent model that we have where year to year, the beehive stays on location is not only cool for bees, because 90% of beehives, honeybees get trucked around. That's like la transhumance, or following the bloom, is a typical thing to truck bees all around. We try to, when we set up a beehive, we want it to be its forever home. So not only is it good for the bees, it's also good for basically our business, is we're keeping our clients, we're trying to get them more and more engaged. And so currently we're in just about 21 cities. We're going to grow into new cities as well next year. And we operate with over 700 companies, sometimes bigger companies that, you know, have multiple locations. Those are really the ones that are pushing our growth, because yeah, it's a big so I just realized I'm over time. So this is the last couple slides here, the future growth. We're obviously expanding across North America and into Europe. And that's the goal, is we're doing it slowly. Before, I guess, the first cities we opened, we did it in a way that was, okay, let's sign a lease, let's buy some trucks, let's hire some people, and then we could get sales. and we flipped that around. So now we try to get the sales before actually opening up a city, and it just makes a lot more sense financially. And then the other thing, which I guess I kind of touched on, is we're trying to grow into different services. And the most exciting one that I'm looking forward to next year is we're going to try a cut flower garden. So on a rooftop, cut the flowers, give them to the people within the building. Super fun. So yeah, awaiting questions, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, Declan. And I think with this, we close the part of this webinar on the presentations. And I wanted to summarize a few key takeaways that for me are super important of this session. I think the first one that has been clear with these three examples is that sustainability is now part of business performance, and it's core to business performance. And this includes environmental KPIs like CO2 and others. It includes social KPIs, and it also includes doing well-being for the local communities. And you've seen those three elements in the three examples. And as you see, the companies are doing a number of things to do this. First one is ecosystems are critical, and Marylin is through the marketplace creating this ecosystem. Declan was showing how he's partnered with a number of other people, and he's been able to also find the right partners for the different competencies that are not part in the course. The second thing for me is around innovation and new business models. And as you were seeing in the discussion from Robert, you were seeing that they were moving away from CapEx and owning to circular models with rental and fully managing the life cycles. And you've seen also a ton of examples from Marylin and Declan on innovative things. And obviously, I love the model of Declan. You need to test and learn. And failing fast is also part of making the success. And if you don't try things, you will never hit the right button. And this is critical in all of these processes. I think the third thing that for me is key is tech. And as you've seen, I mean, some of the more forefront elements of technology are being critical to enable these new business models. And in the three examples that we've been covering today, but in a lot of other new companies, these technological platforms and technological environments are key. And then I think for me, the fourth point is financial impact. And as you see, you can have sustainability with the end-to-end ecosystem and do companies that are for profit, or traditional companies like Philips, really step changes in the performance using sustainability as a key anchor. And I'm going to close with data from some McKinsey research, where we have seen and we've been analyzing companies that do sustainable design and have included sustainability end-to-end. And we see that the companies that are successful in this model are being able to outperform financially in up to 32% their competitors set in the total return to shareholders. So I mean, I think we need to get into our mind that if we do this product to service end-to-end models, we can do good for the planet and also drive financial profitability while helping our communities. So with this, we will open now up for an additional Q&A, and thank you for all of the activity already happening. And we have 10 to 15 minutes left for additional questions for the group.
Do you want to start with the questions, Ignacio, with any of them? Most of the questions of the audience have been answered in the Q&A. So we can start with our questions if you wish.
Yeah, and I will start with the first question, which what are the key barriers to getting up these models up and running? And I will start you with Marylin. I think obviously I imagine that your whole idea is fantastic, but you must have faced a lot of barriers. So we'd love to understand a bit what have been the barriers to scale up and what has been the most difficult thing to get the business up and running.
Sure, and it's a great question, and thank you for that. So we do have barriers on the two sides of the marketplace. On the partner side, at the stores, about having them on board, and the user side. So on the partner side, is more they like the idea, but the bigger they are, the more legal barriers they have, the more the fear that they have to start selling food that is going to be a waste in hours or days, or it's more of changing the whole operational side and distracting the whole business from their core business to something else. So in that sense, we have identified all the objections, some of them true, some of them false, and all our team is just about approaching and addressing those objections one by one. We use examples of success from the past to start connecting. We use public affairs, we use public relationship, we use everything that we can. We use data, we use statistics just to make it clear that the problem is real, and we convince them one by one. So I would say that in that sense, we win the battle one by one, and then we create a domino effect for connecting with the rest of the smaller and medium-sized type of stores. On the user side is different, because on the user side, the challenge is about creating a habit. And if you see the whole recycling theme, you see countries that the habit is more developed than others, right? So for example, Europe, some countries super developed the habit, but if you go to Latin America, it's still not there. Why? Because it's not easy to recycle, because the government hasn't facilitated yet to make it easy. That is not part of the education schools. So here, because we are number one and we're category leader, we are assuming, or we are dealing with the cost and the effort of making this a habit. I'm sure that if another app comes later, maybe it will be easier for them to capitalize on this, but because we're first in the market, we need to assume and deal with this cost. And so be it. We are doing this, and we're trying to create a habit based on education and emails and CRM and everything that we do. But it's creating a habit, so it takes time. And we see, I'm talking about data in our cohorts and the consumer behavior, we see that slowly we are driving this habit by having them coming back more frequently to the app, purchasing more, so average meal per user, of this consumer behavior. So it is happening. But while it happens, we need to be very vigilant in terms of cost, right? Because it is happening, but it's not happening as fast as we want. So we need to be pretty sure that we are using tech and all the scalable solutions to be able to afford the cost while this happens. So this is the barriers that we have. But it is true that tech is an enabler to make this happen and to be a sustainable business. Because at the end, nobody's going to pay for this. We have assumed, and we are taking this mission, and we are affording this mission with our own financials from within. So this is very important for us to use scalable ways to do it.
Thank you, Marylin, and super exciting. And obviously the number of barriers are huge, but as always, the cultural change is one of the most difficult ones to overcome. The next question, Robert, is for you, and I'm combining one of the questions we had with a couple that are coming from the audience, which is obviously when you do the design of end-to-end offering, as opposed to designing a product, you need to use different methodologies. And also in this one, the audience is also asking that how do you integrate modularization and into the design and manufacturing. So you can share a bit more on how you do this. It would be super interesting.
Thanks, Ignacio, and thanks for the question also. I saw also a question from Dean in the chat. What are the key enablers if you want to move to these circular models? I would say there are many different aspects. You need totally different capabilities also to deliver. Starts from billing, right, to field service engineers that are there to actually maintain and work with the customers. So it's quite a major redesign. Ignacio, maybe to the core of the question around designing. Yeah, so we have started to really address these different buckets. So first of all, think about dematerialization. What can be done with software rather than hardware? Then we have material experts looking at the material impact of choices of different types of plastics, metals, and so forth. And we do typically life cycle assessments to figure out the right option there. So looking into production, use, and recycling opportunities. And then it's really about designing in a modular way. And that's quite a major thing because you really need to build different capabilities. You need to train people to think in these modular categories. You need to develop platforms, for instance, for NMR scanner or CT scanner, whatever, big medical machines, but also smaller ones. So it's a different discipline that you really need to build within your design capabilities. But of course, the charm of big old companies is that they have typically quite well developed process framework. If you are clear on what to put in these type of muscles, so to say, then you also get the good stuff out. Same goes for supplier development, right? But you need to be clear on what you want to get in. So then you can use the existing processes and put these requirements, for instance, also in the stage gates of a product development process. There was also a question around the communication around circularity, but you can imagine if you bring a solution to the market, you have totally different going-to-market strategy, different channels, different decision makers. So communication also naturally looks different. You're probably even discussing with a totally different audience when you try to sell a service rather than offering a product. I can imagine same goes for Declan. I mean, guys offering bees as a service, come on, that's something different than selling bees, right?
No, thank you, Robert. I think these new models are amazing, and still I think we need to learn a lot to get them fully up to scale. And this connects to my last question, which will be directed to you, Declan. Obviously, as Robert was just saying, the idea of selling bees as a service is super disruptive. And how do you convince the companies and the clients to engage on this and to really pick this thing up? Because I think obviously having the unique selling proposition is complicated to get people to adopt this.
With the bigger companies, well, we have a lot of insurance. Because depending on the building, you really need to be up to just be able to cover, and that angle really just helps them not be as worried. But our sales process is more of an education process, so it's making them understand that this is actually possible. So we leverage a lot of the projects that we've already done. And then it just becomes about, we'll do a site assessment and you have to talk with building operators, property managers, and really get everybody on the same page that, yes, a beehive will be here, but nothing will go wrong. And it's typically like it'll take us about 4 to 6 months to actually close a deal. So the sales process is pretty long. Yeah. Hope that answers.
Thank you, and it's amazing because it shows how difficult it is for people to adopt new business model. I think with this, we're going to come to a closing. Mary-Chelle, I don't know if you want to project.
She's providing us the artist perspective. So Mary-Chelle, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Yes, I'm going to share what I did today. Yes, in this case, I wanted to create a visual representation on how sustainable ideas can co-live and how these co-living create meetings which are integrate each other. And these meetings would represent the new ideas that are born for these sustainable ideas directly. And yes, thank you for the time. And this is.
Okay, well, thank you very much to all. I think that the designers have a challenge here because product service systems can we see that are complex to design, test, implement, and bring to the mainstream, and designers can play an important role in facilitating this system by providing insight into the relationships between functional problems and more abstract societal problems. No? So we have something to do there. And before ending, I would just like to remind our audience that next Thursday, October 28th, at the same time, we will be talking about systems thinking versus design thinking. That is why we should integrate sustainability as part of the objectives of the organization. We will have Javier Quiñones, he's CEO and CSO at IKEA USA, Leticia Boucher, she's Regional Sustainability Manager at Interface, and Lucas Carnet, he's the co-founder of 011H and co-founder of Privalia, and they will present their perspectives on sustainable organization design. So thank you, our great speakers, Robert, Declan, and Marylin, for being here. Thank you, Ignacio, for moderating this with me, and see you all next week.
It was a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you.